Good evening, Central Ohio. I'm Dr. 10 meteorologist Ross Caruso. We will now start talking about the winter weather that is currently moving through northwestern Ohio. That'll be gradually moving in across the state as we head into the morning hours on Thursday. But again, to start with, looking at all of the winter storm warnings, 88 out of 88 counties in Ohio are under a winter storm warning for more reasons than just one. We have a lot of snow that's going to be falling and is continuing to fall across northwestern Ohio through central Ohio. We're really going to see it all: ice, snow, sleet, rain. And for those to the south and east, looking at less snow, but generally speaking, more ice. Now, all of these warnings are going to be in effect going into the morning on Friday. But again, just because we're under the warnings right now doesn't necessarily mean we're dealing with the winter weather at the moment, but you can see that rain-snow line that's currently digging in from the northwest parts of the state. That's going to be gradually drifting to the south and east as we head into the early part of the overnight. And again, what we've been looking at over the past several hours has just been plain rain. To be honest, we're probably going to see close to an inch of rain, if not more, by the time we see this change over to perhaps some freezing rain and sleet later on into the overnight. But you can see this rain-snow line that's gradually approaching over towards Lima area. You can continue to see heavy snow that's falling across parts of northwestern Ohio, but closer to the rain-snow line over towards Indianapolis, you can see that we're looking at a wider swath or an area that is showing that transition is not as distinct. We're seeing more sleet, freezing rain involved, and I think that might be key heading into the day tomorrow, where we'll be talking about that winter weather entering parts of central Ohio. Now again, looking at this rain, we are looking at some heavy rain in spots just passing over central Ohio, Franklin County. Some heavy rain that's moving over right over the Columbus City. Still looking at some light to moderate rain off to the west. And again, slowly but surely we're seeing that rain-snow line gradually move in from the northwest. But it's going to take some time, so we won't have to worry about it immediately. But we will be talking that transition overnight, and we'll show you hour by hour coming up in a few moments. But right now, showing that heavy rain that's just passing through our latest scan from our live radar, showing that the heavy rain is now moving out of the city of Columbus, moving over towards Gahanna, northeastern Franklin County, up towards New Albany. Westerville likely seeing some of that heavy rain also up towards Dublin. You're going to see some more of that light to moderate, even in some heavy pockets of rainfall as we head into the early part of this evening. And again, that rain is going to continue to move through, and for a lot of us, those totals will continue to add up. Right now, here's the latest look at some of the rainfall totals that we've seen. Generally a widespread 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch, and here in Columbus, close to a 1/2 inch at the moment. Right now, though, we are looking at gloomy skies and temperatures still into the upper 30s, 39 degrees, dew points in the mid-30s. So we got a lot of moisture, and with that, temperatures aren't dropping as far just yet. Now, looking at the latest with our temperatures, even far northwest as Kenton, you're at 36 degrees. The problem is when we're talking about the potential for freezing rain is when the surface temperatures fall below that. And again, that's where we'll be talking about some icing. But for the time being, things look to be pretty quiet for us. And again, we're going to be talking about not only some freezing rain, but of course some sleet that's going to be coming to town as well. So again, looking at the timeline, breaking it down hour by hour, Wednesday through this evening, early part of the night, some heavy rain from time to time. Thursday morning, and again, this is more so for Franklin County, central Ohio, concentrated. Freezing rain, some sleet and snow early into the morning tomorrow, and then continuing to see some freezing rain. And I think early afternoon, freezing rain to more sleet to then snow and heavy snow, as we'll see another round of some heavier precipitation associated with the system come through as we head into Thursday night. And then heading into Friday, we'll be watching that snow gradually taper off into the morning and likely lingering perhaps into the early afternoon for those to the south and east, with much colder air on the way. Again, hour by hour, we're going to walk through this. This is one of the models, one of our higher resolution models that, again, will be giving us a little bit more distinct information associated with the system. And so far, pretty good placement with where we're seeing this rain-snow line at the moment. But what you'll notice is as we get closer to central Ohio, you're going to see the rain-snow line kind of get a little bit wider. And again, a lot of that's going to have to do with the fact that even though it's going to be cold enough to see ice accumulate, things will be kind of battling, the warmth of the day, even though it's not going to be a pleasant, warm day by any stretch going into tomorrow. But we will be watching a lot of things kind of clash, where we could be looking at more sleet and vice versa, looking at more snow or even some freezing rain. So either way, heading into the early part of the night by around 10 o'clock, Up towards Bucyrus, even Marion, you might be looking at a little bit of sleet mixing in, but still probably a decent amount of rain. Up towards Ken, that's where we'll start to see some of that snow mix in, and then that'll continue to move through to the south and east. Here we are at 3 a.m. Notice that that swath is kind of stretched out a little bit. We're looking at a larger difference between heavy snow and no snow. And with that, again, doesn't make things easier, but with this system, it's looking like we will be looking at a pretty distinct difference at the end of the day on Thursday as far as snowfall totals and especially ice accumulations. But here we are at 3 a.m., 33 degrees here in Columbus, hugging that freezing line. Down to the south, we're looking at temperatures that'll be into the low 40s, still right around 40 degrees in Athens, dealing with heavy rain. Pretty much if you are east of I-71 and south of I-70, going into tomorrow morning, you're essentially going to be looking at much of what you've been dealing with this evening. So more light to moderate steady rain going into the overnight. By the time we head into about 8 o'clock, especially into the mid-morning, that's when you'll start to notice where we'll see some of that freezing rain take place. And I do think southern Ohio is probably going to be one of the biggest regions hit by this measurable ice accumulation that'll be taking place. But further up to the north and west, there is quite the variety from freezing rain to sleet to then snow, which by the point at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, you should start to see more snowflakes north of Columbus, far out to the west in Champaign, Bellefontaine area. You can start to see that snow is going to be taking shape, some moderate snow in spots, still snowing up in Bucyrus essentially from about midnight tonight to about 8 a.m. And again, in one of the locations where you're going to be dealing with the snow a lot longer than those to the south and east, where again, we're going to gradually see this rain-snow line drift to the south, further to the east. Here we are going into the early afternoon tomorrow, and again, slowly seeing things shift. You're also going to notice as we head further into the afternoon, the intensity is going to be picking up with this next round of precipitation. So again, northerly winds that are going to be coming through with this front. We're still looking at a lot of moisture that's being funneled into the region. Still looking at snow by around 1 o'clock up in Bucyrus. Should be dealing with plain snow up in Marion by the early afternoon. And then into Delaware, Mount Vernon area. Those areas is where you should start to see more snow than sleet involved. But still likely dealing with some sleet, some light freezing rain here in Columbus. Further to the south, especially for those Lancaster, Logan, Chillicothe, Washington Courthouse, and Fayette County, you're going to be continuing to see icing into the afternoon on Thursday. And again, probably even into the evening, we're still going to be worrying about some freezing rain accumulation. But notice here, from Zanesville to Columbus, by 6 o'clock, we could very well be looking at plain snow here in Columbus, and then looking at more of just some sleet moving through parts of Muskingum County off to our east. But again, closer to the rain line, that's where we're going to be looking at more of the freezing rain. And by this point in time, if you're dealing with freezing rain, especially with temperatures that are well into the mid-20s for a few hours, more than likely you will see some ice accumulate for those down to the south and east. As far as the snow here in Columbus, again, pretty much from the evening hours, we'll see some heavy bursts of snow, but then tapering off quickly. So this front will be slowing down overnight into tomorrow morning, and then heading into the afternoon, we'll see some heavier precipitation come in. That's then going to pick up speed and shift further to the south. So while we will see snow come in later and a little bit more pronounced for those to the south and east, it's during the time of which, where it's lining up with the system, it's going to be moving out faster. So whenever you're dealing with a faster system and not as much moisture, you're going to be looking at lesser totals of whatever's falling from the sky, which at this point in time, through much of southeastern Ohio, right around Columbus area, Circleville, will likely be plain snow again by 11 o'clock. But notice we'll start to see some more of that back edge moisture kind of dig around parts of southeastern Ohio, where we'll continue to see likely some light accumulations of snow. By 7 o'clock, I think whatever we'll be seeing across southeastern Ohio will be that of plain snow. And we'll still be looking at some intermittent broken coverage for some light snow, but nothing that really looks to be adding more than perhaps, a quarter to a half an inch of snowfall at that point in time. And then before you know it, 4 p.m. comes to us Wednesday or Friday. Things quiet down quite a bit. Winds will be breezy out of the north, and we're probably going to be having wind chills in the single digits through much of the day. So that's essentially the timeline of the event. Now let's talk a little bit more about the accumulation that we'll be looking at. And again, we'll take some time on each graphic. So again, you can kind of look through here and figure out where you're located in regards to the map and what our ice accumulation forecast is showing for each area across central Ohio. To start with, if you're along I-70 and south, there's a good chance you will see at least some ice. Further to the east, it's looking like we're going to continue to see the ice accumulation pick up. Once you're east of Columbus, we should see areas including Zanesville, south towards Morgan, Athens County, Perry County, with lesser snow. And again, we're also looking at sleet being involved. So just because we're looking at less snow isn't necessarily meaning you're going to see more ice. But with this, roughly speaking, it looks like we could be looking at a little bit more ice, but also a little bit more sleet involved too, which again, we're not showing the sleet, but essentially what that's going to do is we want to see more sleet so then we don't have to see freezing rain or ice accumulation. And again, that takes away from the snowfall totals, which will then ultimately make the event not as significant. But still, we are expecting some significant icing to take place across areas mainly along and south of I-70, here highlighted in the red. And anytime you're looking at accumulation ice in regards to a quarter to a half an inch, that is a lot. That is a lot of stress on trees. That is a lot of stress on power lines. And that's where we start talking about widespread power outages. So if we start to see the ice accretion actually continue to get to closer to numbers that are half an inch or more, that's where we're going to be looking at some significant issues out on the roadways. As far as us here in Columbus, we're going to be riding that line where we'll likely see some pretty slick spots here around the metro area surrounding 270. But again, the most significant icing looks like it will be south of us. And then just to the north, for those up in Mansfield, Marion County, northern Holmes County, northern Knox County, you're probably not going to be dealing with that much ice at all. And again, it just has to do with the way the system is moving in and not really seeing that much warm air present to keep the precipitation that's falling to stay as rain so that it freezes on contact. We'll see colder air dig into the north, but then things will kind of slow down a bit heading into tomorrow with the way that the day will turn out to be. But we'll likely see anywhere from a tenth to a quarter of an inch of ice for those that are mainly along I-70. But as you travel further south, like for example Chillicothe and the Ross County down towards Pike and Piketon and Scioto, that's where we're going to be looking at, ice accumulation of around, a few tenths of an inch, which again will be problematic. And again, just as far as ice goes, we're also going to be looking at a difference with the snowfall amount. So again, generally speaking, the more ice you see, yes, it is probably likely, especially in southern Ohio, that you're going to be looking at snowfall totals that are going to be generally under 3 inches. So 1 to 3 inches, and again, that's going to be mainly where we're looking at kind of where the heaviest icing is going to be located at. But again, for us here in Columbus, we could be looking at some places closer to 6 inches, and we could still end up with a quarter of an inch of ice, which is a lot. But you could also see areas that are across parts of eastern Ohio, as the way that the system's moving through, it's at an angle. So again, it's not just completely moving through in one uniform fashion. So we are going to be looking at quite the variety as far as totals. And if we can see a very thin rain-snow line, that is going to make some huge impacts in what we'll actually see come together on the radar and in your backyard. Because honestly, some of our models were showing amounts of snow, the difference between 9 inches in northwestern parts of one county to less than an inch in the southeastern part of that county. So again, there are models that have been showing that. Not that we're really taking that to heart, but again, there have been a few that have been showing that as a possibility. It doesn't look like it'll be that extreme, but still something we at least, have to take into account for. And surely there will be some amounts that will be drastically different than others within a 20-mile difference. And again, just because, the way that it falls, it's not going to be uniform everywhere across the region, especially when you talk about topography. You got wet grounds out there that aren't frozen yet. That'll ultimately diminish the totals and perhaps add to a little bit more for where they're looking at solid surfaces out there, with the fact that temperatures will be below the freezing mark through a good chunk of the afternoon and evening on Thursday. But as you head traveling further north along I-71 into Delaware County near Sunbury, we're looking at amounts that could be closer to 5 to 8 inches compared to Columbus, where we're more so in that 3 to 6 inch range, where again, far to the north and west, where you're already dealing with that snow, that's going to continue to fire up as we head into the day for us on Thursday, with gradually deteriorating conditions for us as we head into the overnight hours Thursday, where we will be looking at the snow wrapping up for the majority of northwestern Ohio. But still, again, just wanted to throw this graphic up here for a few minutes so you can see where you're on your map. And again, very important to realize that just because you're maybe looking at 8 inches of snow, doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to have a little glaze of ice out on the ground before that. So be mindful of it, especially if you're going to be out, again, shoveling some snow. If you happen to have a sizable amount by the end of the day tomorrow, you'll want to be prepared for that as well, because good chance, again, a lot of us will be looking at some slick conditions as we head into the day on Friday. Now, talking about ice impacts, as I mentioned, a lot of areas south of I-70, that's where we're going to be looking at perhaps the more disruptive, which is the middle bullet there, where we're going to be looking at not only the potential for numerous power outages, we're talking tree damage and hazardous road conditions. And again, you will know just how slick it is just by going outside your doorstep and walking to your vehicle. So proceed with caution, because the thing with freezing rain is it's rain as it's falling to the ground, but it freezes on contact with the surface, and sometimes you can't really see that too well, especially if you're going to be heading out tomorrow into the early morning hours, more so tomorrow evening. And then again, for a lot of the ice that's less than 1/4 of an inch, it's a nuisance. We see some minor power outages. It's a light coating. That's where you see it on the windshields, and it's very light. But again, once we start talking about amounts that are closer to 1/2 inch, that's where we start to talk about some significant problems out there, where we're going to be worrying about, you know, a lot of places that aren't going to be able to get power and possibly for quite some time. So again, we're going to be looking at a lot of concerns with this system, not so much as far as the potential for heavy rain leading to flooding. We will be looking at some ponding in spots, and again, not a flash freeze for us as we head into the day for us on Thursday into the morning, but more so, whatever is still liquid as we head into Thursday night will be frozen by the time we head into your Friday afternoon with how cold things will be getting for us. So again, we'll start back here with our satellite and radar just to go again over what we've been seeing lately, and again, more so just rain than anything. We had some heavy rain that just passed through here in the city. We're still looking at some pockets of some light to moderate rain that's moving in from the tri-state area, and that'll continue to be the case as we head into the early part of the night. But you can see to the north and west, some of our northwestern counties up towards Findlay, it looks like you're starting to see a bit of a changeover, perhaps not quite fully looking at snow, but you're probably going to be looking at a mixture for about an hour or so before you'll see that complete changeover. And again, the radar isn't 100% accurate. It tells us a lot more than what we would know without it, but there are some things with it that it could be a little bit delayed. And again, with how far it is, also can play into a role as far as what is actually reaching the ground. So again, if you're up towards Findlay and you're seeing snow out there, then this is showing pretty true. But if you're still looking at some rain, just give it a little time, as we'll see that changeover likely take place soon for Findlay. Not only that, up towards Lima as well. Further to the north and east towards Tiffin, you're in the same ballpark range. So again, pretty uniform with how this line at least is looking like out on radar. And we're just going to continue to see some heavy snow fall across parts of northwestern Ohio up towards Toledo, probably just dealing with plain snow and perhaps some heavy snow that's going to be moving through. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those snowfall rates in far northwestern Ohio exceed about 1/2 to an inch per hour, because again, this is the area where you could be looking at 9 to 12 inches plus of snow. So again, you're going to be dealing with the snow sooner. It's going to stick around later. Thus, you're going to be looking at more snowfall and not as much sleet or freezing rain. But again, we are looking at mainly just rain right now here in central Ohio. That's going to gradually continue to stay pretty steady as we head into the early part of the night, and then changing over to that of some light freezing rain into the overnight hours. And again, we're not looking at any widespread icing as we head into the early morning hours tomorrow. That'll be just when it'll start. So it will take some time for this to turn widespread, as far as especially the significant amounts of accumulation with regards to ice. That's going to take some time for us. So again, that'll continue to be a topic of discussion as far as deteriorating road conditions late morning tomorrow into the afternoon hours, and especially as we head into Friday afternoon as well, as we'll likely see the snow pretty much done with here in Columbus by around, I would say, 6 to 9 a.m. But we'll still see some flurries and some light accumulating snow to the south and east as we head into the Friday afternoon. And we'll quickly go through just the track and the latest guidance of this for those of you who are just chiming in right now. Again, thanks for tuning in and being patient. I currently can't see anyone's comments on this. Otherwise, I would be addressing those as well. But quickly going through, this is 7 p.m. this evening. And again, this is matching up fairly well with the rain-snow line. So we'll hop back on this too, up towards Kenton. And again, I'd say that's pretty close. If not, let's see here. So this is pretty close. So it looks like the way that this model was initializing with this, saying that, the rain snow line is already up towards Kenton. Yeah, it's just to the north and west of the county there. So again, this is pretty spot on as far as where we're seeing the snow, where we're seeing the rain snow mix. It's just a matter as we head further into the night, will we see the precipitation turn lighter, which again, this model is showing that. You can see how we're kind of seeing a hole in the precipitation up towards Kenton right now at 10 o'clock. So we could very well see some lighter precipitation turn into the overnight, which will be good because, again, that's when we're starting to see perhaps this freezing rain take shape across parts of central Ohio. But I would say between 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Thursday is the prime time where we will see freezing rain. The heaviest of that accumulation for freezing rain will likely be between, I would say, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., where we will see that ice accumulate across parts of central Ohio. But again, we will see it move in a little bit later into the morning hours for our friends to the south and east. So again, likely where you're at, it's going to be different, 30 miles to the north and 30 miles to the south. So some big changes likely with this system. 28 degrees perhaps by around 1 p.m. for us on Thursday, and that's going to be showing by that point in time probably some steady sleet. So we're going to continue to see that sleet linger a bit as we head into the early part of the afternoon. And I think that's kind of the underdog with what we're going to be looking at as far as precipitation type, because sleet's kind of not really impressive. I mean, you hear it. I mean, it just looked like little glass pellets. But again, with the sleet, that's essentially some warm air that's present enough to melt the snowflake, but some colder air that's closer to the surface, above the surface as well, that allows it to partially, if not completely, refreeze, which again, it's just like pellets hitting the ground, clear pellets, which is good because then it's not freezing on contact like with freezing rain. So the more sleet that factors in, we will likely see less freezing rain and less snow, just so you know. And again, the heaviest snow for us here in central Ohio will be through the evening hours. That'll taper off into the early part of the night. Still looking at some light to heavy snow, generally speaking, across southeastern Ohio overnight into Friday morning. By around 7 a.m., everything should be pretty light. We'll still look at some snow, but it'll be more scattered. We're not working with as much moisture, but then turning downright cold with highs only into the 20s for us. And again, ice accumulations, generally a widespread 1/10 of an inch across much of the I-70 corridor south towards the Ohio River. And that's going to be generally to just a couple counties south of us here in Columbus, where we'll see perhaps some of the more significant ice, where again, if you're highlighted there in the red, if you see a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch ice, that's where you're going to be looking at some pretty big problems as far as the potential for downed trees, power lines, and very treacherous road conditions, etc. But for us here in Columbus, we're more so on the numbers of as far as a 1/10 to a 1/4 of an inch, and perhaps maybe even a few hundredths of an inch just further north into parts of northern Franklin County. And again, as far as snow, there's going to be a drastic change. I mean, for example, from Columbus, we're in that 3 to 6 ballpark. Here in the metro area, more so closer to 3 to 5 inches. But again, you travel an hour north of Columbus up to Marion, you could be looking at 6 upwards of 10 inches of snow. Vice versa, you just traveled down south and head to Chillicothe, an hour south, you could be looking at 1 inch of snow. So there is a huge difference in these snowfall totals. And again, we will probably see a few changes, a few wiggle room for our snow map as we head into tomorrow morning. And again, because with all the things that are going on, the temperatures, the difference of 2 degrees can be the difference between us seeing no freezing rain to seeing a 1/4 of an inch of ice. So again, and that's just not the surface temperature, that's the temperature above the surface as well. So there's a lot of things that are coming into play, but our models are giving us a better idea of what we could be looking at as we head into your Friday morning. And so again, generally 3 to 6 here in Franklin County. To the east towards Zanesville, looks like you could be looking at that 1 to 3, and you're kind of hugging the line of 3 to 6 because it's looking like you might be dealing with sleet a little bit longer for those eastern counties with the way that the system is moving in from the northwest and tapering off to the south and east. Again, just use this as a guideline. Don't marry these numbers, but this is a good estimate as far as what you could be looking at. And again, for those of you that have been tuning in, thank you, and we'll end here quickly with your 7 to 10 day forecast, where again, it is just going to be a bit of a mess for us for maybe even a solid day or two. For a lot of people that are dealing with the ice, might be lingering into the weekend. But regardless of what your travel plans will be, just be mindful of what's happening in your area, and not so much just at home. If you're going to be traveling somewhere, it's important to know what the weather is going to be like there as well. So again, keep it here with 10 TV. We'll keep you updated. Otherwise, temperatures feeling like they are below zero as we head into your Friday morning and Friday night, and we're actually going to feel below zero because our air temperature is going to be right around -1 degrees, and then 23 for a high for us on Saturday again. Back to around 33 on Sunday. Weather looks pretty quiet, thankfully, as we head into next week. Boy, we'll need a break, especially after all of the fun stuff we'll see tomorrow. Again, just be mindful, be careful, and especially check in on your neighbor, especially your elderly family or friends down the street. Definitely want to check in on them, especially if we're going to be looking at any power outages. And stay safe, make smart decisions, and we got a couple more days, and the weekend will be here. So stay tuned. We'll have another live update on 10 TV News at 11 o'clock. Hope to see you then. And then we got a lot of covered for you guys as we head into your Thursday and Friday. So keep it here at 10 TV. Take care.